Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Missy, this is Paul, and in this video I'm going to talk to you about my breastfeeding journey from birth to today, which is about 7.5 months in. So to start with kind of my timeline of breastfeeding, I knew when I was pregnant that I definitely wanted to try breastfeeding. I had kind of already coached myself based on all of my friends' experience that if I wasn't able to breastfeed, that formula was going to be totally fine. Because I had heard from a lot of my friends their struggles, and a lot of them through many tears decided not to breastfeed, and it seemed like this horrible thing not being able to breastfeed and so traumatic. So I was kind of mentally prepping myself for that if for some reason we couldn't breastfeed, that formula would be okay. So I kind of went with that mindset, but I wanted to definitely try to breastfeed for the health benefits. I personally think for me it's easier than formula, dealing with buying formula, mixing formula, and cleaning all the bottles, plus the mamas who pumped, because then you have to spend time pumping, you have to spend time feeding the baby what you pumped, and then you have to clean all those bottles. So to me, just straight breastfeeding seemed like the easiest for me. So that was kind of my goal that I wanted to do. Also, what we wanted to do, which was mentioned in the Bradley method, and my doula recommended it, was kind of like a way for dads to get involved. So I believe it was between 6 and 8 weeks. Once your milk comes in and it kind of stabilizes, I would pump once a day, being in the morning. So I do my morning feed and then pump a bottle, and then at nighttime, Matt would give that to Paul alone. I wouldn't be in the room, so Paul wouldn't be distracted, and Matt and Paul could have this wonderful bonding experience. That was the plan. When we got to that point, we were just kind of like, do you want to do that? Matt was like, meh. I was like, meh. So we kind of just scrapped it and never did it. But I think that's a magical thing if you decide to do it. You want to come sit with Mama? Okay, so what actually happened after I gave birth to Paul? So I had practiced the different breastfeeding positions from the Bradley method class, and I figured with the way my chest is, the best would be the cross cradle hold, because you can support the body and then use the corresponding arm to kind of get the nipple in their mouth, especially when they're learning to latch, which is exactly what I ended up doing for him for the first couple months. A lot of women like the football hold, which I tried it just didn't really work for me. And then eventually I just do, I guess, the cradle hold now. I just kind of sling in my arm and he just pops right on there. But in the beginning, those were the 3 or 4 that I was looking at. He was born at home. I did a home birth story, if you haven't watched that already. As soon as he was born, he went right on my skin for a bit. I don't even remember how long it was. And then while I was getting cleaned up and I had to have a couple stitches done, Paul went on Matt's chest, skin to skin. So he was there, and he was actually already trying to latch onto Matt, which was funny. And he was also instantly right out of the oven sucking his thumb. He was ready to go. So I think it was probably about, it felt like forever, but it was probably more like an hour-ish. Then I tried to breastfeed with my doula and my midwife helping me, and it just took a couple tries, and I was very fortunate that he latched right on, did his first feeding, and then passed out, which was very quick. It's colostrum. They were actually only getting a couple drops. Their stomachs are so tiny at that point. So we did that, and the first few days are just learning how to latch. So you're so hyper-focused, and your form in breastfeeding, I didn't realize was going to be so focused on this. So you're holding them, and then you're using this arm with your nipple trying to get it in his mouth, and you're all hunched over, looking for the latch. They delatch, you move. My shoulders were getting so sore. I was not expecting that. And that hold I did for probably about a month or 2 till I felt comfortable. I don't even remember when it was. It was just all of a sudden I realized, wow, I don't have to help him latch. He just kind of does it on his own. I think that was around 2 months. And that's when I kind of switched from that, to me, kind of awkward form to just kind of plunk him in your arm and then boom. That's what I do today. The feeding schedule when he was first born was every 2 to 3 hours during the day, and at night 4 to 5 hours. So we were very fortunate with having a sleepy baby, and after a couple weeks I had to set an alarm and wake up Paul every 4 to 5 hours to feed him during the night, which was kind of a pain. Better than being woken up by a screaming baby, I know. I'm very fortunate. I am not complaining. So we did the 2 to 3 hours during the day, 4 to 5 at night, and then we always did, and I just assumed that this was a thing because this is what my midwife and my doula had taught me and the Bradley method talked about, but a lot of moms that I talked to didn't do this, so I don't know if this contributed to Paul sleeping very well from the get-go, but we started from day one with the dream feed. So what is a dream feed? It's before we go to sleep, which was around 10, 11. We would go into wherever he's sleeping, pick him up, and yes, you're waking them up, so a lot of people think that's crazy, but you're not talking to him. You actually avoid eye contact, because babies find your eyes very stimulating. So you're trying to be very quiet. You pick him up. And what we ended up doing when he was little was changing his diaper as, quickly and calmly and quietly as possible. And then I would feed him and he'd pass out and we'd lay him back to sleep. And then he'd be good for another 4 to 5 hours. We did the dream feed up until just a few weeks ago. I think it was. Yeah. Oh, do you have something to say? Okay. We stopped mid-July, so right when he turned about 7 months. I realized when we were getting him that he wasn't really feeding all that long, so we just were like, what if we just don't do it? So we just recently stopped doing it, and he's adjusted fine. So going back to birth, the 2 to 3 hours every day, 4 to 5 hours at night, plus the dream feed. He was born on a Friday, and on Tuesday morning, my breast milk came in. And you will know because your breasts are so engorged, and my hormones went crazy. That's pretty much where my postpartum anxiety battle started, I'm pretty sure. It has gotten a lot better, but those first couple weeks are crazy. For example, the same day my milk came in, we were taking Paul to his pediatrician for his first appointment. And just the stress of getting all packed up, I was very swollen. My feet got so swollen. None of my shoes fit. My husband's shoes wouldn't fit. I had to wear like Adidas slippers, like sandals in January / almost February. I just looked like a hobo going there. I was uncomfortable. I got in the car. I couldn't find the seatbelt for me to buckle in, and I just started crying. I dropped a pen before we left. I went to pick it up and I kicked it and I started crying. You're just a hot mess. It's pretty awful, not gonna lie. So then that was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. At some point in there, my left breast randomly just got hugely engorged and Paul would not feed. It was actually so big that the nipple was like really tight and he couldn't latch onto it. My breast got beet red. It was hot to the touch. I freaked out. I had no idea what to do. This is another benefit to having a doula. My doula at this point was still texting me all day, every day. How's it going? You're not going to make this easy for me. How's it going? What's going on? So I told her that my breast was engorged. What do I do? She had a lactation consultant call me right away, and she came to my house the next day. So this is Thursday, and basically helped me manually express milk because I was trying to do that. Paul found his voice this week, in case you haven't noticed. She helped me manually express, which relieved some effort, and was telling me tricks on like how to use the Haka pump, how to pump properly, and using ice and heat packs on my breast every time I fed. And she said one of the tricks she made me do, which I didn't want to do, but I'm glad I did, is she just said, keep putting the baby on the left side. It's going to get frustrating. Just keep doing it. So I wanted to give up. My husband kept pushing me, just keep doing it, keep doing it. So I keep doing it. And to this day, I still don't get as much milk out of my left side as I do my right, but I still do both sides every single feed. So next would be our 2-week appointment with our pediatrician. And at that point, Paul had surpassed his birth weight because they dipped down just a little bit. So I talked to my pediatrician about doing feeding on demand. So instead of every 2 to 3 hours, just feeding when I thought Paul was hungry. And he was fine with that. He said he would like me to still do the 4 to 5 at night, because especially since he was sleeping, but to do the 2 to 3 during the day. So that's what I did. And about, I would say the beginning of February, so that's what I started doing, feeding on demand, what I thought he was hungry. And it ended up being, some of them were long stretches because he was sleeping so much, especially since I had him wrapped. Like some of them would be, as an infant, he was like 4 hours at a time. Paul had problems when he was 2 months old with going to the bathroom. I think he went about 3 weeks without a bowel movement, which he is breastfed, so it's not completely abnormal, but my pediatrician wanted me to bring him in. And at that point, she said that he dropped percentile to an uncomfortable level she didn't want to see. So she suggested that we skip the on-demand feeding and go back to 1 to 2 hours is what she wanted me to do for, I think it was about a week, and then we had to do a weigh-in. So I was feeding him every 1 to 2 hours, and that's not finish feeding to start, that's start to start. So if you started feeding him at noon and he fed for 45 minutes, you're starting feeding again at 1 or at 2 o'clock. It was crazy. It was stressful, but you know, it is what it is. We went back to his appointment. He started creeping up in weight, so he was doing great. At his 3-month appointment, our pediatrician said he looked awesome. So we fixed that. It's just about, you know, kind of adjusting things. Me trying to figure out how to feed a baby and him trying to figure out how to feed and, you know, not sleep all day, basically. So after the 3-month, my pediatrician said that I could then start feeding every 2 to 3 hours. And I think at that point, I still wanted to fatten him up in my own mind. And I was kind of leaning more towards the 2 hours during the day. And she was okay at that point with him sleeping through the night. So we stopped waking him up. And he pretty much was on the schedule of bedtime at 7 p.m., dream feed at 10 to 11, and then he would wake up at 7 a.m. He's been doing that since pretty much like the 3rd month, which has been awesome. And I'm so grateful that he does that. Around 4 months is when I started this theory of, let me research co-sleeping again, because there were times, I mean, majority of the time he was sleeping from dream feed to 7 a.m., but I would say 1 to 2 times a week, especially with like 4-month regression, he did start getting up at like 4 or 5 in the morning. And since, you know, I'd breastfeed, I would get up with him, sit in the nursery. This is the winter time, so it was cold. Feed him, try to stay awake, then bring him back into our bedroom, put him in the bassinet, climb into our bed, try to warm up, fall back asleep. So it ended up being like you're up for like 90 minutes sometimes, because he would feed for a very long time. And then it just dawned on me, let me look into this co-sleeping thing again. And my chiropractor, who is a La Leche League leader, I guess, former leader, was just telling me, she's like, just bring him back to bed. Just bring him back to bed. Look at co-sleeping, bring him back to bed. It's wonderful. You get sleep. So I was like, ugh. So I started trying it. And I would bring him back into bed, feed him in bed, and he would fall asleep. I would fall asleep. It was amazing. I'm going to do a whole video on co-sleeping because there was a lot of questions that I had that I figured I would address in case you were wondering. So that's pretty much when I started doing that, the co-sleeping, which made my sleep so much exponentially better. If we have another baby, honestly, I'll probably start doing co-sleeping from day 1. It's just easier. It's easier for me. I can feed him laying in bed. I can fall asleep. It's amazing. And from that 4-month period is when I started the morning co-sleeping, I guess. I started this routine where he wakes up in the morning and I would feed him, then change his diaper. So what I do is in the morning when he wakes up around 7 a.m., I just bring him back to bed with me and I feed him in bed. We bond. You know, he talks to me. We kind of play a little bit, take our time waking up. It's great. I savor every single second of it. I try to take pictures as well so I can remember these, you know, precious moments, because I'm sure come very soon he is not going to be wanting to sleep with mommy every morning. So I'm enjoying it while it lasts. So once we hit the 6-month mark is when we talked to our pediatricians about doing baby-led weaning. And he said, awesome, go for it. And asked if we were going to continue breastfeeding. And I said that I was going to. And he said, even better. So the plan was to keep breastfeeding until he's 12 months, introducing foods. I kind of did a video on baby-led weaning about Paul so far. We started when he was about 6 months. I started looking for him for cues that he was interested in food. It took about 2 more weeks, and then he started looking like he wanted to. So we put him in a high chair. We put food in front of him. He was just playing with it. And then within the last 2 or 3 weeks, I would say, he's actually really grabbing food, putting it in his mouth, chewing it. You know, sweet potatoes, zucchini, meats. He's loving it all. But while we're baby-led weaning or feeding, my breastfeeding schedule still remains for him. We're about now every 3 to 4 hours. It's kind of aligned with when I'm feeding him. So it's when he first wakes up, his morning nap, I feed him again. His afternoon nap, I feed him again. I was feeding him around before dinner, and I since have dropped that because he's eating solids and he seems fine. And then I feed him before he goes to bed. So that's the only time that I'm feeding him right now. Within the last few weeks, after talking to the pediatrician and kind of doing my own research, and with COVID and everything going around, not that breastfeeding is COVID cure, but just diseases in general, we have been talking that we're possibly going to try to breastfeed him for possibly up to 2 years. If he wants to stop sooner, great. Or if we get pregnant, I don't know if I want to breastfeed. So some of the products that I used for breastfeeding were the Boppy pillow. I was fortunate enough to get this on loan from a friend. So this one I used a lot. And basically you put it under the little squishy newborn because they're so little, to help prop them up so you're not leaning over so much. Now Paul's bigger. I don't use this pillow all that much. But I used this one, and then I got another pillow from Friends, which I liked so much better. It's called the Breast Friend pillow. I'll leave it up here. It's foam, it's a little stiffer, and it kind of snaps on your back, which sounds kind of ridiculous, but when you're sitting in a chair with this one, it kind of scoots out a little bit. So the Breast Friend pillow, I highly recommend. We actually got 2 of them from Friends, so I had one upstairs, one downstairs. For breast pads, I went 2 routes. I got a bunch of disposables, which were nice for when I was traveling in the beginning, going to doctor's appointments, stuff. You can just chuck them away. And I ended up getting bamboo reusable ones. I love them so much more. I prefer, you heard this being so distracting. I preferred the bamboo ones. I still use them today. When I first started breastfeeding, every time I breastfed, I was changing those pads because you just kind of leak a little bit. That does stop. So for example, I don't know when I'm going to take a wild guess, around 3 or 4 months. I stopped putting them on every time because you just don't leak anymore. You notice the pads are dry. So like, for example, now I only use the pads overnight, and I do leak in the morning. It happens. So I like those a lot, and I just throw them in with the diapers and they get steam cleaned and are wonderful. Hakas. So this is the Haka right up here. There's a couple different kinds. For a little trick here, I got just the regular cheapo, like $10 Haka, and they do have ones with stands, but I just put mine in a mug so it didn't tip over, and then you have a little handle, so that solved that, so you don't have to buy the fancy one. But those are great. I had 2 of them, just so I had one that was clean, one was dirty, and I used to use them in the beginning when he was little, and I would feed him on one side and put one on the other side to catch anything, because that stuff is magic, and you don't want to waste any in a breast pad. So I used to do that, and if there was a period like when we were getting rid of the Dream Feed and I felt really engorged, I could just pop those on for like 5 minutes and relieve that engorgement feeling. Or if I wake up before him, I would put those on because it's intense. Your breasts are huge and engorged, and it's just uncomfortable. So I would use the Haka just to get like an ounce out. You know, I'm not trying to get all of it out, just a little bit so you can feel more comfortable. So those are insanely handy. And just look up how to use them. There's a proper way. I had a friend who was saying like, oh, good luck putting those on your boob, your baby's gonna knock them off. If you put them on right, your baby's not gonna knock them off. There's 2 ways to put them on. One is like barely any of their suction to catch like drips. And then there's another one where you basically squeeze it and pop it on there, and it does not hurt. And it will basically, the mild suction will get some of the breast milk out. So there's 2 different ways you can go how to wear them. And also just kind of put this out here, breastfeeding does not hurt. It should never hurt. If breastfeeding is hurting, something is wrong. So my suggestion is to get a lactation consultant. I wish I had gotten one before he was born and not when something was wrong. That's what my doula recommended, that we go to either Le Leche League meetings before he was born, or to contact somebody, and I just never did. I just ran out of time. But hindsight, I would have done it before. Breast milk bags. So I actually have not bought any. A lot of my friends who were breastfeeding happily gave me theirs, but they are a little bit different than, you know, just putting in a Ziploc bag. The bags have ounce markers on them. They're each sealed, so it's not just a bag of bags. You have to actually like rip the top of each individual bag before you fill it, so it's, I guess, more sterile. And you can chuck them in the freezer. I believe the rule is 3-3-3. You can leave breast milk out for 3 hours, refrigerate it for 3 days, and freeze it for 3 months. If that is right, I will keep this in here and tag some information on that. So that's a helpful thing to kind of remember. Burp cloths, you will need a lot of those in the beginning. I think I only bought like 3 or 4 on my registry. I would get a dozen of them. And These ones are my favorite. I think they're Gerber. I'll link them below. They're just, I don't know. I just like these. They fit on my shoulder. I could put them up there. You can clean spit up with them. You know, I've also read people that just use muslin cloths, like the blanket ones. They kind of use that for everything. I liked these ones opposed to some thicker ones. This one's just really like thin and easy to use. I don't know. I just like it. But get a lot more than you think you're going to use is my recommendation. The other one is a water bottle. Simple, I know. If you think you drank a lot when you were pregnant and you thought you were over that, you're not. If you're breastfeeding, you're going to get insanely thirsty. I actually don't, but I read a lot of women get thirsty. So what I always do is I have one of these water bottles. It's 24 ounces. I don't know what mils that is. Probably 750 milliliters. And I drink one of these. My goal is to drink one of these with every breastfeeding, because you think fluids are coming out, you need fluids going in so that you don't get dehydrated. So get a really good water bottle that you like. Some really awesome resources that you can use for breastfeeding are the Motherly Art of Breastfeeding. I talk about this book all the time. I loved it. It was my favorite read. You can also check out the Lele Chili website. That's a really good one. kellymom.com is another really good website for new moms, breastfeeding advice, all that good stuff. And I always like to go to what to expect when you're expecting. That website has a lot of really good resources as well. And you can also use their app too. Advice that I'd have for somebody who is breastfeeding, a new mom, is the stigma with breastfeeding is just all over the place. You hear about women feeding in public and getting shamed. You hear about women who breastfeed and get made fun of by relatives, or don't breastfeed and get made fun of by relatives, and it's so horrible. We should just all be supportive of moms. They've got so much going on. But the advice I gave to a couple of my friends who gave up on breastfeeding because they were struggling and just felt awful about it is, who cares? The main thing is that your baby gets fed. So if you breastfeed, you're able to breastfeed, you want to breastfeed, awesome. If you don't want to breastfeed, you want to formula feed, awesome. If you try breastfeeding and it doesn't work and you have to go to formula feeding, awesome. There's nothing wrong with that. Your baby needs to be fed, and that's all that matters at the end of the day. Your baby's healthy, your baby's happy, no matter what you do. So that saying that breast is best, I don't like it. I think fed is best should be the new thing going around. The other thing that I would share is if you go into breastfeeding thinking, oh, it's natural, I'm just going to be able to do it magically. For me, it was not. It was hard. It was a learned skill. I had never breastfed before. My breasts have never been used for that before. So it was a skill. I did have, in the beginning, your nipples get a little bit chapped. That was another product I used. I used nipple cream for like a week. Then I switched to coconut oil. And my lactation consultant said the best thing you can do is actually let those things air dry. So I would feed him and then do skin to skin with him when he was so little. And I just leave my breasts out to air dry. And that worked so much better than the nipple creams, to be honest. But at night when my nipples were sore in the very beginning, and that doesn't last very long, I would put the nipple cream on and then put the breast pads on. And that seemed to make me more comfortable. So like I was back to what I was saying, breastfeeding for me was challenging. I did it, but it was not super, super easy. So if you're breastfeeding and struggling, hang in there. But if you want to stop breastfeeding, that's totally fine. As long as your baby's happy and healthy, that's all that matters at the end of the day. But if you want to keep trying and you're struggling, just keep chugging along. It gets better, I promise. Those first month, I'd say, of just learning how to latch are really difficult. And then they learn to latch on their own, and they're like little suction cups. I mean, when I'm trying to feed him and my breast even gets near his face, he's just on there. So it gets so much better, I promise. And then what I was kind of talking about before, the mom shaming, it's unfortunate, but it does happen a lot. A lot of people like to give you their advice or their opinion on what you're doing with your baby, and you kind of just have to, what I do is just tone them out. Everybody's allowed their opinion, but me and my husband are the one that makes the decision on our baby, and I don't really care what anybody else says, even if it's family. So it's hard, but I just don't listen to anybody that has anything bad or negative to say about breastfeeding. That's what we chose to do with our son. We're happy with our choices. He's happy and healthy with our choices. So at the end of the day, to me, that's all that matters. All right, friends, that's all I had for this video. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't, and we'll see you next time. Bye.